The house still smelled like lemon cleaner and something faintly burnt. Mom said it was toast, but I didn't see any. Her phone was on the counter again, screen frozen mid-text like it had been holding its breath. I tapped it. Nothing. It's just old like me, she muttered, waving me off. Her robe was loose, slippers mismatched. She'd always been so put together. Now, she forgot things. Lost track of time. Called me my sister's name. I picked up the phone. I'll take it in. You don't have to. I'm already heading into town. Let me. Driving through the fading gold of early autumn, I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. That phone had been acting strange for weeks, glitching, freezing, opening random apps. Margaret Ellingson, my mother, wasn't tech-savvy, but still this was beyond forgetfulness. I remembered one night when I stayed over, she'd mumbled, "Someone keeps coming and I hear them." I chalked it up to a dream, back then. But that wasn't all. Lately, I'd seen cash withdrawals, bigger than what she usually spent on groceries. Notes in her handwriting on the fridge about things she'd already done, like reminders to eat or take out the trash. I parked near the strip mall. Leaves skittered across the pavement like they were trying to get away too. The tech shop sat between a vape store and an empty nail salon. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed. A guy behind the counter looked up as I entered. Thin frame, dark curls, a trimmed beard. He had that familiar, unreadable look, like he knew me from somewhere but wasn't sure if I'd want to be reminded. Eli? Nora Ellingson. He smiled, barely. It's been a while. Eli Torres used to be one of Edward's friends. My ex-husband had collected loyal men like trading cards. Most of them scattered after the divorce. Eli had stayed in town. I handed him the phone. It's freezing, acting weird. He powered it on. Tapped around. His brow furrowed. He slid into silence, tapping and swiping. This isn't just a system error. He turned the screen to me. Look at this. I saw folders named innocently, Health Tracker, Sleep Monitor, Wellness Sync. Those aren't what they say they are, Eli said, voice low. Hidden inside? GPS pings. Audio recordings. Banking apps that sync to external devices. Who set this up? I stared at the screen, my throat dry. He stood straighter, leaned in like someone afraid of being overheard. If you care about your mom, cancel every card tied to her name and change the locks. Tonight. My heart stopped. This isn't just malware, he added. This was installed intentionally. Someone wanted to monitor her. I drove home in silence. Rain tapped the windshield like nervous fingers. I called Mom, no answer. Called the house, TV static answered. Just the sounds of a game show echoing down the line. Weeks ago, she'd laughed off strange phone calls. It's probably those scam artists, she'd said, smiling, but her eyes had darted toward the hallway. The house was dim when I got back. Her favorite blanket cocooned her, and the TV flickered across her face. She was asleep. I moved through the kitchen like a shadow. Something on the table caught my eye, a printed bank statement, slightly curled at the edges. One line jumped out. Transfer to Edward Ellingson, $50,000. The air left my lungs. I looked at her. Peaceful. Fragile. I reached for the chair, sat down hard. 50,000. To Edward. When? Why? I ran my finger down the paper. There were more transfers. Smaller ones. Spaced just far enough apart to avoid alarms. She never told me. No one did. I watched her breathe, each inhale soft like it was borrowed. Something was very wrong here. I leaned back, heart pounding, thoughts spiraling like storm drains. What the hell is going on in this house? Have you ever discovered something about your family that made you question everything you thought you knew? I charged Mom's repaired phone in the guest bedroom like I was just being helpful. Like I didn't have my heart racing or my palms sweating. It lit up as soon as it hit the charger. Not with the usual Apple logo. With a notification. No sender, just the message. Saturday. 9 p.m. done. Split even. I stared at it. Another popped up seconds later. Transfer to Maine, she doesn't ask questions. Keep it clean. And then. Appointment moved. Still need her signature. I hadn't tapped anything. The phone just told on itself. I opened the Notes app. Dozens of entries. Lists of prescription refills. Grocery items. But then, one stood alone, typed in jagged capital letters like someone had been shaking. Don't trust Nora. She wants it all. The phone slipped slightly in my grip. Was that her voice? Her words? Or someone else's hands? My stomach turned. I scrolled past it like it would disappear, but it only burned deeper into my eyes. I tapped into the voice memo app but didn't hit play. Not yet. The front door opened. I barely had time to slip the phone back onto the charger before Edward walked in, arms full of grocery bags, pharmacy bag tucked under his elbow like a football. Forgot the key again, he said with a practiced smile. Thought I'd stop by with Mom's things. I nodded. My mouth didn't work right away. He clocked the phone charging. I could feel the moment he saw it. His shoulders didn't tense, but something behind his eyes went still. I didn't know you were here, he said, too smooth. Figured you'd be elsewhere. I'm helping Mom, I said. He raised an eyebrow. She's resting. And she's got people who help her now. The air tightened. Margaret shuffled in a moment later, robe tied loose again, eyes dull. Oh. You're still here. She didn't sound surprised. She sounded tired. Edward set the groceries down. Nora's just checking in. Margaret's voice dropped an octave. You're always checking in. What are you looking for? I didn't answer. Dinner was awkward. Edward reheated soup. Margaret pushed her spoon in circles. I sat, trying not to shake. Forks scraped. No one really chewed. Just moved food around like a scene from a play. I tried. How's your neighbor, the one with the cat? You used to. Margaret cut me off. You're not the one I trust anymore. I blinked. What? She stood, quietly. You question too much. It wears me out. When dinner was cleared, Edward walked me to the door. She needs peace, he said. Calm. Direct. You're upsetting her. Edward. She said it herself. Margaret appeared behind him, leaning against the hallway wall. Her face was pale. Her eyes were cold. Don't come back while I'm alive. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. I walked to my car like I had somewhere to be, hands trembling against the wheel. As I turned onto the main road, the sky split again. Rain fell harder this time, thicker, colder. like the sky knew what I'd just lost. At a red light, I opened the voice memo app. First file. Play. Static. A shuffle. Then Edward's voice, she keeps poking around. Margaret's, you said she wouldn't. You promised. She's stubborn. We need to finish this before she causes more trouble. Then my name. Not Nora. Just her. Like I was the danger. Like I wasn't even human. I pulled over. Rain smeared the windshield. My hand hovered over the next recording. They've already decided who I am. Without me. What would you do if your own mother turned her back on you, and you had proof something terrible was coming? I came back with a bag of canned soup, soft bread, and fruit no one asked for. Helen answered the door in her worn cardigan, the porch light casting long shadows behind her. I figured you might need a few things, I said. She glanced down at the bag. You didn't drive across town for bananas. No, I said. I didn't. We sat at her kitchen table. 2 mugs. One untouched. Helen looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. After some small talk that felt like stalling, she leaned in, her voice hushed. There've been arguments. Late. Screaming, sometimes. Coming from your mom's place. My heart climbed up into my throat. Edward? I asked. She nodded. In and out. All hours. He always has folders. And once, I swear I heard a woman yell, not a shout. A scream. I froze. I called. He answered. Said Margaret had fallen asleep watching some crime show. Sounded so calm, I felt silly for even asking. Helen hesitated. There used to be a woman who visited. Indian, I think. Doctor of some kind. She stopped coming. Do you know her name? She paused, eyes searching the ceiling. Patel. Simone Patel. I wrote it down. Would you talk to the police? I asked. Her hand trembled slightly around her mug. I did. Once. They made me feel like I was confused. Like I imagined it all. I left her house with a pit in my stomach and Simone Patel's name burning in my brain. It didn't take long to find her clinic online. Next day, I booked a consultation under a different name. Claimed I was looking for options for my aunt. Midway through the appointment, I nudged the conversation. Some of these families, they manipulate their elders. Make them sign things. Turn them against people. Patel's polite mask wavered when I said my mother's name. I can't talk about that, she said quickly, glancing at the clock. You've seen it before, though. Right? I pressed. What they do with power of attorney? She said nothing. Just stared. Her lips trembled. I slipped her a folded note before leaving. If it's about power of attorney, I already know. She called at 10:17 p.m. I can't say much, she whispered, voice taut. But be careful who you trust in your family. Your mother wasn't always confused. I hit record mid-sentence. What changed? A pause. Then, they isolated her. Click. Line dead. I sat in my car for a long time before moving. I parked across the street from the Ellingson house. The porch light flickered once. Through the parted curtain, I could see Margaret at the table. Head slightly drooped. Edward sat beside her, flipping through pages of a thick folder. He turned it toward her. She hesitated. Then signed. He folded it clean, tucked it under his arm, and kissed her cheek. Then he left. I followed from a distance. No headlights. Just shadow and instinct. He pulled up beside a sleek brick building marked Private Trust Services, shoved the envelope into an after-hours slot, and vanished into the night. I drove home shaking. In the silence of my kitchen, I logged into Mom's old online banking. I still had access. I'd helped her set it up years ago. The retirement fund was gone. Gone. Remaining balance, $42.38. Line after line of wire transfers. Each one to Ellingson Holdings. Clean. Recurring. Timed perfectly after Edward's visits. I checked my recordings. The timestamps matched. I printed every page. Every note. Every thread. You turned her against me to take everything, I said aloud. And then the phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. A robotic voice crackled through. You've asked too many questions. Click. No time to panic. I turned toward the window. Someone was watching. Across the street. Still. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. They're not just stealing from her, I whispered. They're erasing me from her world. If someone in your family used trust and love as a weapon, would you still call them blood? I waited until the lights in the house were out. The wind carried the dry rustle of mid-autumn leaves as I stepped out of my car and made my way across the backyard. The sliding door, the one Margaret always forgot to lock, gave with the faintest push. I slipped inside, silent, breath measured. The study still smelled like the lemon oil Margaret used on the old oak desk. I left the lights off and let the amber glow of the desk lamp guide me. The folder was where it always had been, in the bottom drawer, under the outdated insurance files. Labeled in crisp black ink, Ellingson Trust, Final Transfer. Inside, a stack of papers, formal and cold. Margaret's signature. Neat. Shaking, but unmistakable. The witness? Dr. Simone Patel. Why would Mom sign this, I whispered, unless she feared something more than telling the truth? I snapped photos quickly, hands steady even as my chest twisted. Then, footsteps. A door clicked downstairs. My spine locked. Edward. I killed the lamp and dropped to the floor, sliding under the desk just as his shape appeared in the hallway. He walked in, humming a tune I hadn't heard since childhood. Something off a cassette Margaret used to play in the car. He moved to the bookshelf. Tapped twice on the third row. A panel popped out. Hidden safe. He dropped the folder inside, spun the lock, and walked out like he didn't just seal away the last of my mother's agency. I didn't breathe until his footsteps faded. And even then, only slowly. I had what I came for. But the question burned, what else was locked in that safe? The next morning, I walked into Dr. Patel's clinic. I wore plain clothes, no makeup, and that careful mask of someone seeking care, not confrontation. Just checking on arthritis options for my aunt, I said cheerfully. In the waiting room, I leaned closer. You know, I saw something strange yesterday. A folder. Your signature. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed. She leaned forward, speaking just above a whisper. I'm not free to talk about that. She slipped a folded slip of paper beneath a pamphlet and slid it across the table. Edward paid extra for that document last month. I palmed it, my phone recording the whole exchange from the coat pocket I'd positioned just so. I have to ask, I said, my voice tightening. Did you witness my mother sign something she didn't understand? Dr. Patel glanced at the hallway camera. Then, ever so slightly, nodded. Power of attorney is a fine line, she said. Some cross it for love. Some for control. I stood. I know which one he crossed. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with Margaret's old phone. I still had the login, never revoked. I opened the voicemail app, scrolled through dozens of calls. Most recent, Edward. Timestamp? 5:13 a.m. The message was crackly. Margaret's voice, low and unsure. I have to sign or she'll take everything. She. Me. The lie had become her truth. I stared into the glow of the screen, David's quote echoing in my head like it belonged to her. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what others think. Margaret wasn't confused. She was cornered. Edward had rewritten the story. Painted me as the threat. Fed her fear until it outweighed memory. My hands clenched. I gathered the folder, the printouts, the recording, and laid them out across the table. A battlefield made of paper and ink. Tears fell, quietly, steadily. Then I wiped them away. Closed the folder. Stood up. This stops now. Not for revenge. For truth. Have you ever been told you were protecting someone, but ended up protecting their secrets instead? I reached for my coat. As I did, the front door clicked. From the inside. Edward's voice didn't call out. No footsteps. Just silence. I turned toward the entrance. A red light blinked above the frame. A small camera. Installed high. Subtle. They weren't just watching her. They were watching me. The papers were spread across Helen's kitchen table like the aftermath of a storm. Bank statements. Voicemail transcriptions. Margaret's trembling signature. Helen poured tea she didn't drink. Her hands never stopped moving, fiddling with napkins, adjusting the stack of papers, trying not to look me in the eye. Edward changed the locks again, she said finally. Told me it was for your mom's safety. Her safety from who? I asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I shoved the papers into my bag and grabbed my coat. Helen's voice caught at the door. Nora, don't do anything foolish. I smiled without humor. I already did. I waited too long. Margaret's car still smelled like her perfume, soft lavender over the ghost of cigarettes. I parked a block away from the house, cut the lights, and moved through the shadows. The security pad beside the back door blinked steadily. Edward had upgraded it, but not enough. I'd watched him set the code once, months ago. 5729. His birthday. Predictable. The soft beep of the system disarmed, and I stepped inside. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a heartbeat. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and fear. The new locks gleamed on the doors, thick, metallic, with tiny pinhole cameras mounted above them. I snapped photos, proof for later. Then I heard it, Edward's voice, low and deliberate, from behind the study door. We'll finish this tonight. The words vibrated through the wall. My throat went dry. I moved closer, barely breathing. Margaret's voice murmured something. Too soft. Too tired. The sound of paper sliding across the desk. Then silence. My pulse hammered so loudly I thought he'd hear it. I backed away slowly, one hand gripping the banister. I needed to get out before he realized I was here. By the time I reached Helen's porch again, my hands were shaking. I told her everything, every detail. We sat in silence for a long time, both knowing something irreversible was coming. It did, faster than either of us expected. Sirens split the air less than an hour later. Helen's call came through first. "It's the house, smoke's coming out the west wing." I didn't think. I just drove. When I turned onto the street, the night was lit in orange. Firemen shouting. Neighbors gathering like moths. I could see Margaret's silhouette in the window, coughing. They were breaking down the door. Helen's voice trembled through the phone. "He was there, Nora." I saw Edward carrying boxes out before the fire started. I pushed through the barricade tape before anyone could stop me. The heat hit like a wall. The smell of burning wood mixed with something acrid, plastic, paper, trust. Margaret was pulled out by a firefighter, wrapped in a blanket, dazed and gray. Edward stood on the lawn, soot on his shirt, eyes wild. "Family's over," he shouted. I did it for her protection. I didn't answer. I stepped through smoke into what was left of the study. Ash and chaos. On the floor, one folder, edges blackened but the title still visible. Ellingson Trust. I knelt, coughing, pulled it close. The signatures were half burned, but still readable. My name wasn't one of them. For a moment, I was back in that kitchen years ago, Margaret brushing tears from my face. Never let anyone lock your heart, Nora. Now I understood she hadn't just meant love. She meant power. A crash behind me, Edward, framed in the glow of the flames, smirking. He held up a small USB drive between two fingers. "You want truth? Here's your truth." He tossed it into the fire. "Your move, little sister." I lunged, but the smoke blinded me. By the time I found the drive, it was gone, melted into nothing. By the time the fire was out, so was the illusion that anything in this family could still be salvaged. Hours later, I sat in my car outside Helen's. My hair stank of smoke. My throat hurt. My soul burned worse. When I opened the glove box, something small clattered out. A second USB. He'd given me a decoy. Typical Edward. I slid it into my laptop. The files opened to audio, Edward's voice, sharp and cruel. "Sign, or you'll be alone." Margaret's whimper answered him. "Please don't." Silence, then a click of a pen. I hit pause. The sound echoed through the car like a verdict. I called Dr. Patel, voice hoarse. "I have proof." He coerced her. "This is blackmail." Her voice came low and steady. "Then you have legal grounds now. File for elder abuse, Nora. End this." I leaned back, staring out at the night sky. "End this," I whispered. "Have you ever been offered a way out, but the price was your dignity?" By dawn, the complaint forms were ready. I placed them on the table beside Margaret's bed. For the first time in weeks, she was asleep without fear on her face. For the first time in months, I felt something close to calm. Then my phone buzzed. A photo. Taken seconds ago. Margaret's bedroom door, slightly ajar. A shadow standing just beyond it. The message below, "Their locks are open." The courtroom smelled like old wood and disinfectant, the kind that clings to memories you don't want to revisit. The benches were full, neighbors, reporters, a few faces that didn't belong but wanted a story. My palms were damp as I sat at the plaintiff's table, the burnt folder beside me, the USB drive carefully labeled Exhibit C. Across the room, Edward adjusted his tie. He wore his good smile, the one he used for donors, the one that could almost pass for sincerity. The cameras loved him. The lawyer at his side whispered something, and he laughed. The judge entered. The chatter died. Ellingson versus Ellingson Trust and Estate, the clerk read. When they called my name, I stood. My voice didn't shake. I discovered the tracking apps. The hidden accounts. The documents my mother was made to sign under pressure. I held the jury's gaze. Truth doesn't scream. It whispers in unexpected places, and I listened. Deputy Ray Collins stepped forward with the final evidence packet. Screens displayed timestamps, surveillance logs, images of Edward entering Margaret's home past midnight. The camera above the front door, the one I'd found blinking red, had become his undoing. Edward's lawyer rose, his tone slick. Ms. Ellingson, you were estranged from your family for years. Isn't it possible your resentment clouds your judgment? I met his stare. Resentment doesn't fabricate evidence. He tried again, perhaps this is about inheritance? I leaned forward. No. This is about dignity. My mother's, and mine. Murmurs rippled through the room. Edward turned toward the witness stand. Margaret sat there, fragile and silent. Her eyes met mine for the first time in months. They were watery, distant, but something behind them flickered. Recognition. The air was heavy enough to break. If the law says you can't keep family secrets, I said quietly, should it protect the family, or the truth? The judge called for recess before deliberation. My legs felt like stone. Outside the courtroom windows, snow drifted over Portland in quiet sheets. Hours passed like years before the jury returned. Every shuffle of feet echoed like thunder. On the count of elder coercion and fiduciary misconduct, the foreperson read, we find the defendant, Edward Ellingson, liable. Full transfer of assets to Nora Ellingson. Written apology required. A single gasp cut through the silence. Edwards. He stood still, jaw tight, face drained of that smooth confidence. He said nothing. Didn't look at me. Just turned and walked out. I exhaled, the weight of years leaving with that breath. Margaret rose slowly. The bailiff helped her steady herself. She took my hand. Her palm was thin, cool. Thank you, she whispered. The flash of cameras lit the moment like lightning. Helen stood at the back, hand over her mouth. Dr. Patel nodded once, the faintest smile on her face. Outside, dusk fell in shades of silver and gray. The wind was cold but clean. I could feel something in me, quiet strength replacing the shaking that had lived there for months. My phone buzzed. A message from Clara, my cousin, who hadn't spoken since it all began. Just a single key emoji, followed by words, we never truly lock the doors. We just choose who walks out. For the first time, I smiled without bitterness. I'd spent months fighting over money. But what I'd really reclaimed was the right to speak, to name what happened, to say it out loud without shame. That night, I drove back to the house where it all started. Snow blanketed the lawn, soft and pure, covering the burn marks from the fire. The windows were dark. Margaret had moved into a smaller apartment now, somewhere with sunlight. The key was cold in my hand. I stepped onto the porch. The lock caught, stiff from winter. I turned it slowly. The air inside was still. Each step echoed across the empty rooms. The kitchen still smelled faintly like coffee. The piano stood untouched. A family photo leaned sideways on the mantel. I picked it up, the four of us frozen in happier light. I slid my own photo out, placed it beside Margaret's, just the two of us. That was enough. On the dining table, I set down the USB drive and the folder, now sealed inside a small box labeled closure. I locked it, placed the key beside it, and stood for a moment in the silence that followed. Then I walked to the door. Locked it from the inside first, one last time, before stepping out. Snow fell harder now. My car waited under the streetlight. I sat behind the wheel, looked back once. The house glowed faintly through the frost, like a memory already fading. I didn't win because I fought someone, I whispered. I won because I found myself. What if the strongest way to defeat control is to simply walk away and lock the door behind you?